Welcome back to Fuel for English Life, the place where we don't just learn English, we live it, breathe it, and become it. Today, I want you to imagine something powerful. Imagine speaking English so naturally, so confidently, that it doesn't feel like a second language anymore. It feels like a part of who you are. No fear, no hesitation. No translating in your head, just pure flow. You see, fluency isn't about knowing thousands of words or memorizing grammar rules. It's about how you think. It's about your mindset. Because the truth is, every fluent English speaker started just like you, shy, uncertain, afraid of making mistakes. But they changed one thing that made all the difference: the way they see English and the way they see themselves. Fluent speakers don't say, "I can't speak English." They say, "I'm learning to express myself better." They don't focus on mistakes. They focus on progress. They don't worry about sounding perfect. They worry about being understood. Their secret weapon isn't talent. It's consistency, belief, and a mindset that refuses to quit. And in this episode, we're going to dive deep into that mindset. The invisible force that turns learners into speakers and speakers into masters. So, if you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever thought you'll never be fluent, this episode is for you. Because after today, I want you to stop calling yourself a learner and start calling yourself an English speaker. You're not behind. You're just on your way. Welcome to episode 2, the mindset of fluent English speakers. Let's reprogram your thoughts, rebuild your confidence, and rediscover your voice in English and in life. Rule 1, believe that English belongs to you. Before you ever become fluent, before your mouth speaks fluently, your mind must first believe that English belongs to you. This is where fluency begins, not in the grammar book, not in a classroom, not on YouTube, but inside your belief system. You have to understand that English is not a language only for native speakers. It's not something you borrow or something you use temporarily. It's something you can own. The moment you say, "I can speak English," with confidence, even if your grammar isn't perfect, even if your accent isn't smooth, that moment, the world begins to treat you differently because your energy changes. You see, most people stay stuck not because they lack skill, but because they lack permission. Permission to believe they deserve to speak this language. They think English is for smart people, educated people, or people who grew up abroad. But that's a lie. English is a tool, not a trophy. It doesn't belong to a country, a race, or a group. It belongs to everyone who dares to use it. And that includes you. When you believe English belongs to you, your fear starts to fade. You stop apologizing for your accent, and instead, you wear it proudly because it shows your story. You stop comparing yourself to others and start competing with your past self. You realize fluency isn't about perfection. It's about connection. And you can't connect if you're afraid to speak. Let me tell you something powerful. Every time you speak English, even if it's broken, even if you stutter, you are becoming fluent. Because fluency is built in moments of courage, not moments of silence. The people who speak fluently today once made thousands of mistakes, but they didn't let those mistakes define them. They let those mistakes teach them. That's the real mindset of fluency, turning fear into fuel. So, from today, stop saying, "My English is bad." Instead, say, "My English is growing." Stop saying, "I can't speak." Say, I'm still learning how to express myself. The way you talk to yourself shapes the way you speak to others. You have to speak power into your progress, because your mind listens to your words, and if you keep saying you're not good enough, your mind will believe it. But if you keep saying you're improving, your confidence will start to rise, and so will your fluency. Remember, your brain learns faster when it feels safe, not judged. That's why you must stop criticizing yourself and start celebrating yourself. Every sentence you say, every word you learn, every video you watch, they're all steps forward. English doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. So, believe this. You are not a guest in this language. You are a resident. You belong here. And the moment you fully believe that English belongs to you, your voice will start to flow naturally. Your mind will stop translating, and your confidence will start to shine, because you finally stepped into your power. That's rule 1. Believe that English belongs to you. This is not just a lesson, it's a mindset shift. From now on, stop asking, "Can I speak English?" and start saying, "English is a part of me," because it is. Rule 2. Think in English, live in English. If you truly want to speak English fluently, you must go beyond memorizing words or repeating phrases. You must think in English. This is one of the greatest secrets of fluency that most learners never understand. Fluency is not just about how fast you can speak. It's about how naturally you can think. The real transformation happens not when your mouth starts moving in English, but when your mind does. Let me tell you something powerful. The reason you sometimes freeze, hesitate, or forget words while speaking English is not because you're bad at the language. It's because you're translating. You're thinking in your native language, then trying to convert your thoughts into English. But the moment you do that, you create delay, confusion, and pressure. Your brain starts to work in two systems, and fluency becomes almost impossible. But once you begin to think directly in English, something magical happens. Your mind becomes faster, lighter, and more creative. You stop depending on memory, and you start depending on instinct. That's when fluency begins to flow like a river. To think in English, you must live in English. You must surround yourself with the language until your brain starts to see it as normal. Change your phone language. Follow English pages. Read English quotes every morning. Listen to English podcasts when you walk. Talk to yourself in English when you cook, clean, or even shower. You don't need to move to another country. You just need to create an English environment inside your own mind. Because your environment doesn't have to change for you to grow. Your mindset does. When you start living in English, something beautiful happens. Your mind slowly rewires itself. You'll notice you start describing things in English automatically. You start reacting in English, you start dreaming in English. And when that happens, you don't study English anymore. You become English in your thoughts. That's when fluency stops being a goal and becomes a habit. Thinking in English doesn't mean forgetting your native language. It means expanding your brain to hold more worlds. It means being able to switch between cultures, ideas, and expressions with freedom. That's what makes you powerful, not just as a speaker, but as a human being who can connect with people from anywhere. At Fuel for English Life, we believe in this truth. The language you think in is the language that shapes your reality. If you think in English, you start to dream bigger, you start to feel more global, more confident, more connected. You no longer see English as a subject to study. You see it as a tool to build your life. You begin to say, I'm not learning English. I'm building my English identity. Let's get practical. How can you think in English every day? Start small. When you wake up, describe your morning in English in your head. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm making coffee. I feel fresh today. When you walk to work, look around and name what you see. A car is passing by. The sky looks beautiful. The sky. That man looks tired. These simple mental exercises train your brain to stop translating and start thinking. Every single sentence is a brick, and every thought in English builds your fluency wall higher and stronger. But here's the most important part. Be patient. Thinking in English is not an overnight skill. It's a daily practice. Some days you'll forget. Some days you'll struggle. But those are the days that matter the most. Because every time you try again, your brain rewires a little more. Remember, fluency is not about speed. It's about consistency. The moment you can think in English naturally, your speech becomes smoother, your confidence rises, and your fear fades. You stop worrying about what others think, and you start focusing on expressing yourself clearly. You begin to speak with flow, not force. That's the magic of living in English. It doesn't just change your language, it changes your identity. So, dear listener, if you want to speak like a fluent English speaker, stop memorizing. Start immersing. Don't just learn English, live English. Make it part of your thoughts, your emotions, your routine, your soul. Because when you think in English, you don't just learn the language, you become it. That's rule 2. Think in English, live in English. Remember, you don't get fluent by studying harder. You get fluent by living the language. Rule 3. Speak without fear. Break the chains that hold your voice. If you truly want to speak English fluently, there's one thing you must understand. The biggest enemy of fluency is not grammar, it's fear. The fear of making mistakes, the fear of being laughed at, the fear of not sounding perfect. But let me tell you something from my heart. Fear has destroyed more dreams than failure ever did. Fear silences your confidence before you even open your mouth. You start thinking, what if I say something wrong? What if people laugh at my accent? What if I forget the words? And that what if becomes a wall that blocks your growth. Fluent English speakers aren't perfect. They're just brave. They've learned to speak even when they're unsure. They've made thousands of mistakes, but every mistake became a stepping stone. They understand one powerful truth. You can't learn to swim by reading about water you must jump in. The same goes for English. You can't become fluent by only reading books or watching videos. You must open your mouth. You must practice. You must speak. When you were a child learning your first language, did you care about grammar? No. You spoke freely. You made funny mistakes. You said words wrongly. But you kept going, and that's how you learned. The same method works now. The more you speak, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the faster you grow. That's the law of language mastery. Progress is born from courage, not perfection. Let me share a true story. There was a boy from a small town who wanted to learn English to change his future. But every time he tried to speak, people laughed at his accent. He stopped speaking for months. One day, he decided that silence was worse than failure, so he began to talk to himself in English every day, in the mirror, on the street, while cooking. People called him crazy, but he didn't stop. Slowly, he gained confidence. 1 year later, he got a job in an international company. Not because his English was perfect, but because his confidence was unshakable. That boy didn't become fluent overnight. He became fearless first, and fluency followed. That's the lesson here. Fear is a cage, and English fluency lives outside that cage. The more you let fear control you, the smaller your world becomes. But the moment you say, "I don't care if I make mistakes," you begin to grow. Because every mistake is not proof of failure, it's proof of effort. You only fail when you stop trying. At Fuel for English Life, we believe that fluency is not built in silence, it's built through courage. So, next time you feel afraid to speak, remind yourself, English is not a test, it's a tool for connection. The person you're talking to doesn't care about your mistakes. They care about your message. Speak with heart, not with fear. Speak to connect, not to impress. Here's a truth few people will tell you. Native speakers don't care if your grammar is perfect. They care about your energy, your emotion, your intention. If you speak with honesty and confidence, people will listen. If you speak with fear, they'll feel your hesitation. Communication is not about perfect sentences, it's about human connection. Fluency is not only in your mouth, it's in your mindset. The moment you stop being afraid to sound imperfect, you unlock the real power of your voice. Because language is not about sounding like someone else. It's about sounding like yourself with confidence. Don't compare your English to others. English. Everyone has a different accent, a different rhythm, a different story. That uniqueness is your strength, not your weakness. Let's get practical. Here's how you destroy fear. Talk every single day, even if it's just to yourself. Stand in front of a mirror and say, "Today I'm speaking English no matter what." Join online speaking groups, record yourself, watch English movies and repeat out loud. The more you speak, the less you fear. It's like exercising a muscle. Every word you say makes your confidence stronger. And if someone laughs at you, smile. Because you're doing something they can't. You're growing. You're learning. You're brave enough to face discomfort. Remember, courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you speak even when you are afraid. I want you to imagine this. A year from now, you're speaking English fluently. You're not translating anymore. You're not nervous. You're confident, relaxed, and natural. And when someone asks you, "How did you become so fluent?" you'll smile and say, "Because I stopped being afraid." That is the transformation you're creating right now, one brave sentence at a time. So, dear learner, stop hiding your voice. The world is waiting to hear you. Your ideas, your dreams, your story, they matter. Don't let fear silence them. Remember this always. Fluency doesn't begin when you speak perfectly. It begins when you speak bravely. Rule 4. Think in English, the secret to true fluency. If you've ever wondered why some people sound so natural when they speak English, it's not because they memorized more grammar rules or vocabulary lists than you. It's because they've trained their mind to think in English. Thinking in English is not just about translating words. It's about transforming your brain to live, breathe, and respond in the rhythm of the language. It's the invisible bridge that connects your thoughts to your words without delay, hesitation, or confusion. Most learners make the same mistake. They translate every sentence from their native language into English before speaking. It feels safe, but it's a trap. Because when you translate, you slow your brain down. You lose the emotion, the tone, and the natural flow of English. You start thinking, how do I say this, instead of just saying it? And that's why so many learners sound robotic or unsure. Not because they don't know English, but because their thoughts are still living in another language. So, how do fluent speakers do it differently? They have rewired their mindset. They've built a mental habit to think in English automatically. When they wake up, they think, I'm tired, not in their mother tongue, but in English. When they see food, they think, this looks delicious. When they walk under the rain, they whisper, it's a beautiful day. These small, simple thoughts, repeated every day, slowly change the language of the mind. It's like tuning your brain to a new frequency. Let me tell you a real story. A boy from Thailand named Ken. He used to struggle with English for years. He memorized grammar, watched hundreds of videos, and even passed tests. But when it came to speaking, he froze. He told me, I know the words, but they don't come out. I asked him what language he used to think in. He said, Thai, of course. I smiled and said, that's your real problem. From that day, Ken decided to change how he thought. He made a rule. From now on, I'll think in English, even when I'm alone. At first, it was hard. He forgot words. He mixed languages. But he didn't give up. Every morning, he described his day in English. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm wearing my shirt. I'm going to work. At night, he reviewed his day in English, talking to himself like a friend. Slowly, his brain started responding faster. One day, he realized something magical. He no longer needed to translate. English started flowing naturally, like water. That was the day he became fluent, not in his mouth, but in his mind. That's what I want for you too, my friend. I want your brain to live in English, because real fluency doesn't come from speaking, it comes from thinking. The more your thoughts are in English, the more natural your words will become. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present in the language. When you see something beautiful, say it in English. When you feel angry, express it in English. When you dream, let your dream speak in English. Here's something powerful. Your brain listens to your inner voice more than anything else. If that voice speaks English, your learning becomes faster and easier. You don't just memorize, you absorb. You don't just learn English, you become English-minded. And that's the secret fluent speakers never tell you. Fluency is not learned, it's lived. Here's a technique that truly works. The 3-minute thinking practice. Every day, give yourself just 3 minutes to think in English. Don't write, don't translate, just think. For example, what did I do today? What did I learn? What am I grateful for? Speak it in your mind. At first, it will feel slow, but soon it will become natural. And the day you start thinking without translation, that's the day you'll stop learning English, because you'll already be living it. Now, I want you to understand this. English is not only a language, it's a way of thinking. It's how you express ideas, how you describe emotions, how you see the world. When you think in English, your confidence changes, your rhythm changes, even your attitude changes. You start to feel different, freer, more creative, more connected to people around you. You stop worrying about mistakes because your brain has already accepted English as your language. You see, the greatest wall between you and fluency is not outside. It's inside your mind. But the moment you switch the language of your thoughts, that wall disappears. You begin to speak with flow, with power, with personality. You begin to sound fluent because your brain has become fluent first. So, from today, make a promise to yourself: no more translation, no more overthinking. Every time you catch yourself thinking in your native language, pause and switch to English. Make English your inner voice, your mental soundtrack, your second nature. Because the truth is, your mouth speaks what your mind believes. If your mind believes in English, your tongue will follow. And when that happens, you'll no longer be a learner, you'll be a communicator. You'll be someone who uses English not as a subject, but as a part of life. At Fuel for English Life, we believe that true fluency begins in silence, in those moments when your thoughts shift into English without you even noticing. That's the magic moment when English stops being a lesson and starts being a lifestyle. So remember this: my friend, thinking in English isn't just practice, it's transformation. Speak it, feel it, live it. Let English be not just in your mouth, but in your mind. Rule 5. Feel the language, don't just learn it. If there's one truth that separates fluent English speakers from lifelong learners, it's this: fluent people feel the language. They don't just learn it. They don't treat English as a school subject filled with rules, tenses, and tests. They treat it like a living, breathing emotion, something that flows through their heart, not just their head. Think about it. The reason you remember songs, movie lines, or emotional speeches in English is not because you studied them, but because you felt them. Emotion makes learning unforgettable. When your heart connects to what you're learning, your brain naturally remembers. That's why the secret to fluency isn't just hard work, it's emotional work. You have to fall in love with the sound, the rhythm, the stories, the feelings behind every English word. Let me share a true story that changed how I see language learning forever. There was a young man named Arjun from India. He had studied English for 10 years. He knew the grammar, the rules, the structure. But when he spoke, it sounded flat, emotionless, almost robotic. One day, his teacher told him something that woke him up. "Arjun, you know English, but you don't feel it." That night, he couldn't sleep. What did she mean by feel it? A week later, Arjun started listening to English songs, not for vocabulary, but for emotion. He listened to Ed Sheeran's Photograph, Coldplay's Fix You, and even old speeches by Martin Luther King Jr. He stopped translating and started closing his eyes, trying to feel what the speaker or singer was feeling. When he heard "I Have a Dream," he didn't think about grammar. He imagined the fire of hope, the pain of injustice, the power of belief. And for the first time in his life, English didn't feel like homework. It felt like music. That was the turning point. From then on, Arjun didn't study English to pass tests. He used it to express himself. When he was happy, he wrote poems in English. When he was sad, he wrote diary entries in English. When he watched movies, he tried to feel the emotion behind every scene. Slowly, his accent softened, his tone became natural, and his confidence grew. Why? Because English stopped being a language he learned. It became a language he lived. My friend, I want you to understand something deeply. English is not just words. It's culture, emotion, energy. Every word has a heartbeat. When you say love, dream, freedom, or believe, they're not just sounds. They carry the stories of millions of people around the world. When you feel those words, you start connecting to English on a deeper level. Here's a simple example. Take the word hope. If you just memorize it, it's just a word, H-O-P-E. But if you remember the time you almost gave up and still kept going, that word becomes powerful. When you feel the meaning, your pronunciation becomes natural, your tone becomes real, and your communication becomes alive. That's what makes people listen to you. Not your grammar, but your emotion. Fluent speakers don't speak perfectly. They speak authentically. They express, they move, they feel every word. When they talk about happiness, you can feel it in their voice. When they describe sadness, you can hear it in their tone. That's what English fluency truly means. Not perfection, but connection. And do you know what's amazing? The moment you start feeling English, your fear disappears. Because fear only lives in the mind, not in the heart. When you speak with emotion, you stop worrying about mistakes. You focus on connection, not correction. You become confident because you're being real. Here's what I want you to try. Next time you watch a movie or listen to a song in English, don't just understand the words. Feel the moment. If it's a sad scene, feel the sadness. If it's funny, laugh out loud. If it's inspiring, let it motivate you. That emotional energy will make your English stick like glue. There's a famous quote that says, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn." I'd like to change that for you. Feel it and you'll never forget it. That's the golden rule of English mastery. When you feel English, you don't just remember it. It becomes part of you. At Fuel for English Life, I always say, don't study English, live it. Don't memorize words, feel them. Don't just learn to speak, learn to express. Because the real purpose of language is not communication, it's connection. And that connection begins when you allow English to enter not just your brain, but your heart. So from today, whenever you study, feel what you're saying. When you say thank you, truly mean it. When you say I'm sorry, let it come from your heart. When you say I believe in myself, say it like your future depends on it because it does. And when you speak from your heart, people will listen not because your English is perfect, but because your message is pure. Rule 6. Practice thinking in English. The secret to true fluency. This is one of the most powerful, yet most ignored rules of becoming fluent in English. You can learn thousands of words, memorize all the grammar rules, and still not be able to speak fluently if you don't train your mind to think in English. Thinking in English means that your brain starts processing information in English directly, without translating from your native language first. It's not just about speaking faster, it's about developing an English mindset. When you think in English, you begin to live in English, and that's when fluency becomes natural. Most people get stuck because they keep translating. They hear something in English, translate it into their language, think of the answer in their language, then translate it back to English before speaking. This process is slow and tiring. That's why, even after years of studying English, they still can't speak comfortably. But when you think in English, your thoughts and words become one continuous flow, like water running freely through your mind. Start small. Begin with simple thoughts about your daily life. When you wake up, say in your mind, "I'm getting out of bed." When you make breakfast, think, "I'm frying eggs," or "I'm making coffee." Describe everything around you in English as you go about your day. This simple mental habit is the foundation of fluency. Don't worry about mistakes. Your goal is to build a connection between your thoughts and English words. Over time, your brain will start switching automatically to English without effort. You'll notice that when you meet someone or think about something emotional, English phrases will naturally come to mind. That's when you know your brain has begun to reprogram itself. Another technique is to narrate your life like a story. Imagine you are the main character in a movie called My English Life. As you walk, think about what's happening in English. I'm walking to the bus stop. The weather feels hot today. I see a dog crossing the street. This habit strengthens your internal voice and helps your mind stay active in English mode. The more you narrate your life, the faster your brain adapts. You can even think about your future dreams in English. Imagine your success story, your future travels, or your goals, all in English sentences. Because when you visualize your future in English, your language connects to your identity, your emotions, and your vision. That's when English becomes you. And here's a powerful truth. You can't speak fluently until you can think fluently. Speaking fluently doesn't mean speaking fast. It means speaking without hesitation. And that can only happen when the words are already waiting in your mind before your mouth opens. Thinking in English builds that speed and confidence naturally. So don't wait for perfection. Don't wait for the right word. Just keep thinking in English, even if it's simple, broken, or limited. Because every thought in English is a step toward fluency. At Fuel for English Life, we believe that thinking in English is not a skill you practice once. It's a lifestyle. You train your mind to operate in a new language until it becomes part of your daily identity. So today, make a promise to yourself. From this moment forward, start thinking in English every day. Talk to yourself in English. Dream in English. And most importantly, live in English. Because fluency begins not with your mouth, but with your mind. Rule 7. Surround yourself with English. Build an environment that speaks to you. If you want to speak English fluently and naturally, you can't treat English like a subject you study. You must treat it like a world you live in. Your environment shapes your language more than any grammar book ever could. Think about how children learn their first language. They don't study grammar. They listen. They imitate. They repeat what they hear every day. Their brains are surrounded by that language 24/7. They hear it on TV, from their parents, in school, on the streets, everywhere. That constant exposure is what trains the brain to absorb the language naturally. Now imagine what would happen if you surrounded yourself with English in the same way. You would start absorbing not just words, but rhythm, tone, expressions, and emotional patterns. That's how fluency grows, not from memorization, but from immersion. To surround yourself with English, you don't need to move to an English-speaking country. You just need to create your own English world, right where you are. Start with your phone. Change its language setting to English. Every time you unlock your screen, you'll be reading and processing English subconsciously. Follow English-speaking YouTubers, listen to podcasts, and watch movies with English subtitles. But don't just watch, study, pause and repeat sentences aloud. Notice how they express emotions. Focus on tone, pronunciation, and the natural flow of words. This isn't about understanding every word. It's about training your brain to hear English the way native speakers use it. The more you listen, the more your subconscious mind starts to build connections between sounds and meanings. Music is another powerful tool. Songs are emotional, rhythmic, and repetitive, perfect for language learning. Listen to English songs and try to catch the lyrics. Sing along, even if your pronunciation isn't perfect. When you sing, your mouth practices English rhythm and sound automatically. You might not notice it, but singing helps you feel English, not just speak it. The melody connects your emotions with the language, and that emotional bond makes English unforgettable. Every lyric becomes a memory. Every rhythm becomes a habit. Surrounding yourself with English also means surrounding yourself with English energy. The energy of ambition, growth, and curiosity. Start reading motivational quotes in English every morning. Follow English-speaking influencers who inspire you to grow. Read short English posts, articles, or affirmations daily. Even 5 minutes a day of active reading can make a difference. Write your thoughts, your plans, your dreams in English. When you write about your life in English, you're not just practicing the language, you're redefining your identity through it. You begin to see yourself as someone who lives and thinks in English. That's how fluency becomes part of who you are, not just what you know. If you want faster results, build your own English bubble. This means creating an environment where English is everywhere around you. Label the items in your room in English: your mirror, your table, your clothes. Talk to yourself when you clean, cook, or walk to work. Make English your background sound. Let podcasts or audiobooks play while you're doing other tasks. Even if you're not paying full attention, your subconscious is still learning. And here's the beautiful part. Your brain never forgets what it hears often. Even if you don't understand everything right away, those sounds are being stored deep inside your memory, waiting to come alive when you need them. At Fuel for English Life, we always say, if you want to speak English fluently, don't just study English live in English. Your environment is your teacher. The people you listen to, the words you read, the videos you watch, they all shape the way you think and speak. So build an environment that supports your goal. Surround yourself with English until it becomes as natural as your breath. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. And here's your final hook. Fluency doesn't come from lessons. It comes from lifestyle. When your environment speaks English, your mind will too. So turn your world into an English-speaking world and watch your fluency grow without even realizing it. This is Fuel for English Life, reminding you, your environment is your teacher, your mind is your student, and your words are your future. If you found this message powerful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more motivational lessons on English, mindset, and self-growth. Because every week, we help you not only learn English, but live it.